Welcome to the 8 Billion Project, where we're on a mission to make an impact by discovering and sharing the purpose of every person on this planet. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the 8 Billion Podcast. I am your host, Liza Florida, and today I've got a special guest here in studio in Irvine, Kevin O'Connor. Kevin is an intuitive, connected, powerful, and masculine life coach and business mentor. Whether he is working with an individual around their personal challenges or their business challenges, Kevin is skilled at seeing the gap between where things are today and what's possible tomorrow. Kevin, welcome to the 8 Billion Podcast. Thank you for being in studio today.
Thank you for having me. And this is fun. And you know what's great is that I feel like we've had like 3 podcasts over the last since Friday. We've talked about so many different things that even today coming in, it was like, so which of those 8 billion things do you want to talk about?
Well, actually, I'm just going to let the audience know, Kevin and I had actually planned we were initially going to do it on Zoom. And when I got on and we were talking about, the work that you do, we got caught up in our conversation that we're like, oh, is there enough time to record the podcast? And from there, he said, well, and then from there, because we realized that you were actually local, we decided to actually postpone the original podcast recording and come up to the studio in Irvine so we could do this in person.
Yes. And I remember saying, where are you? And you said, California. I said, I'm in California. Whereabouts in California? I'm, Orange County. I said, I'm next to Orange County. And it was like, you're the first podcaster that's actually local, because I've done one in Germany. They were in Germany. I've done one, the last one was in Bermuda. And so you're adjusting for time zones, and people are international when it comes with podcasts. And you are literally, I'll say kilometers, 84 kilometers, because I'm Canadian. You are literally about 50 miles away from me. So I said, I'm coming to see you.
And I'm glad that you took me up on the offer to do in studio. It's absolutely amazing. We did have such great conversations that day, and you helped me understand the expanded version of what your coaching's, because what your coaching programs include. So, could you give the audience a little bit of a background about how you got into your coaching and what led you to where you are today?
Absolutely. So I was and still am the father of 2 adult children, and I was married for 30 years, and I was an executive in a company that I founded. And I had started about a dozen businesses over the last 20 years, and I was a business guy. And even though at one point in my life I had a clinical degree in speech and language pathology and worked with children with communication disorders, I morphed over time into somebody who was working in the public sector, and then somebody who's working in the behavioral healthcare sector in the private side, and then I just kept becoming this business guy. Okay. And at about 6 years ago, I guess I had what some people would call a midlife crisis. And I now refer to them as a midlife awakening.
I like that.
And it's crisis if you don't see it coming. And it's crisis if you respond impulsively. And it's a crisis if you throw other people's lives, make them a mess. But it can be an awakening. It can be an opportunity, because our brains evolve to a point where we have enough history, enough experience that we can look at our life and put some perspective and sort of see the next and last third of our life ahead of us and pivot and make some changes. So I made some huge changes. I left my marriage of 30 years. I moved to the western part of Canada, and then recently came down here to Southern California. And in my journey to go and to understand, how did I get to where I was? And it's not like I was in a bad place. I mean, my kids went to great schools. They both are college educated. They're both independent. I'm very proud of them. Yeah. Everything seemed to work out, yet I was having a difficulty working out. And if I was having a difficult time working out and things were unraveling in my life, then surely that must be the case for other people. And so as I kind of focused on what I say is my recovery from being an everyman and focusing on how can I maybe be an exceptional man, I started to think, well, I've actually got some traction, know some things, have some perspective, and maybe, like the Dalai Lama says, pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. Maybe I can help some other folks skip the suffering part. There's pain in life. Maybe some of the insights that I had in my own life could be inspirational and make a difference in other people's lives. And I really focused in on communication and intimacy, and helping men really be able to understand what they're called to do, who they are, what they struggle with, and how to be vulnerable and open, and build great communication skills and speak their truth. And men and women how to be able to connect in a way that is very heart-based and is critical in order to sustain a relationship. So that's where my focus is. Now I continue to do some management consulting, and I continue to have some business interests, but my passion is people and relationships.
Now, have you always been an intuitive?
Here's the funny thing. I have, but I denied it. And here's the thing about men. There are a lot of intuitive, expansive, open men that get a lot of stuff that shut that down. They don't associate that. They don't want that to be part of their personal profile. It's interesting you say, because my wife was a Kundalini yoga teacher. She was a culinary therapist, a health coach, a social worker. And I kind of left that space of feeling and caring and compassion and connecting, kind of like that was her thing. And I was the business guy. I realized that as I stepped away from that I am, if not more, I'm probably more evolved in that area, because I just had that. I know just the family I grew up in, I learned those skills, but I denied them. So a lot of guys, they have a strong gut instinct and strong instincts, and we ignore them.
So even in that span of 30 years, you had to have been operating with your wife where she would have said, like, did she know you were intuitive and you were just the one kind of denying it or pushing it down? Or
I would say she saw opportunities in me and the greatness in me. We all have greatness, obviously, and I was resistant to that. You've been in relationships with people before that they can see things, and sometimes in seeing things, they try to impress upon you what you should be doing in order to get there. It's like somebody says, like, you just have it's like somebody trying to coach an athlete. You have natural ability. You could be a great athlete. You should be a great runner. And they come on so strong that the kid starts to resist it. It's like overtraining when you're a 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old. My son's a professional hockey player, and it's like you take too much time on the ice when you're 7, 8, 9, 10, and you have too much pressure. You can lose the passion and the fire that's within you, because you're trying to please and you're trying to be structured. So I think in my case, I did not take the opportunity to sort of guide myself into seeing who I was. I was feeling somewhat coerced into sort of being a better person or a different kind of a husband, and most men will resist that. I did. We associate that with being emasculated or having somebody sort of drive the bus when you want to drive the bus. There's that saying, there's only one person who can drive the bus at a time.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you're both trying to drive the bus, chances are the bus is going to go off the highway.
There's too many cooks in the kitchen.
Same concept, yeah. So, but thank you for acknowledging that, because it is something I'm really proud of now. Before, it would have been something I would have been uncomfortable with.
No, I think some of the best coaches, mate, are the intuitive ones, because especially when you're trying to do life coaching with people, sometimes maybe even the person you're coaching doesn't even, they think that they're telling you everything on this just surface. But as an intuitive, if you can truly feel what maybe is happening below the surface, you're able to help them through that coaching. And you do a wide variety of coaching, everything from business coaching of women entrepreneurs to relationship coaching, which is what we're going to tap into and speak about today.
I want to make a distinction between coaching and counseling.
Okay.
So when you go to a coach, think about it as a coach who coaches you at the gym, coaches you around business, coaches you around other aspects of your life where you're sort of here and you want to move to a certain direction. Therapy and counseling is primarily focused on a healing process and discovering what some of the underlying, perhaps mental health issues, some of the experiences you've had in your life and how they've impressed upon you and shaped who you are. It is sort of helping you better understand yourself. Coaching is just kind of a little bit more on the, okay, this is what you've got to work with. This is where you want to go. How do we close the gap between the two? So it's an important distinction, because there's incredible therapists out there and For years, I worked for a large behavioral healthcare company in Canada, and I know the world of social work and psychology, but I'm not a counselor.
A counselor,
and,
right.
and I don't counsel, and it's really important to understand that. And when somebody is really, you see a suicidal ideation or depression, or there's something really unhealthy, they need to go to see somebody and spend time with a professional. But if they are struggling with where they are in their life, and there's some hurdles, and they seem to struggle with perspective, coach can be really helpful, because they can sort of hold up the mirror and say, okay, what are you seeing? What's the gaps? And most people have the solutions themselves.
Right. Okay. Now, what amount, like, is there specifically one area that you have more clients in, like, as far as it relationship, or is there an equal amount? I mean, I'd like to know.
Well, I'll tell you my favorite kind of client.
Okay. Yes.
So my favorite type of client are clients like me, because we usually coach into ourselves. So, and what I mean by that is that they're at a certain point in their life with a certain perspective. And if you look at somebody who's middle-aged, we get through our life following a sort of innate set of rules. We're kind of wired to be a certain way, and often don't step back and take a look at what we really don't know. It's more of like what we do know and it's working, and then it doesn't work. Mm-hmm. But we don't have perspective, we don't have input, we don't have guidance. So I really like working with people who are recognizing that they are in a place in their life where they can sense there's something else. They need a breakthrough. They're kind of stuck, and maybe they're more inclined to make some decisions that are not really healthy. Like, I'm stuck in my marriage. There's no connection. There's somebody really attractive that I spend time with, and I'm finding myself drawn to that person. Mm-hmm. I'm this far away from having an affair, or I've had an affair. And so that's a coping strategy, but it's more of a symptom of what's not working in the marriage, mm-hmm. or what they're struggling with personally.
Personally, yeah.
So infidelity is an interesting thing. I experienced it. I was the person who broke the contract. I cheated on my wife at the end of 30 years. Wow. So I have a deep awareness and significant regret that I worked through. That was my response to my circumstances, my choices. So sometimes people will say, "Oh, we were working together, and I just fell in love with her. It was just like she was my soulmate. Mm-hmm. It just happened." And I really need to call people on that and say, you fall in love with somebody outside of your marriage because you made 1,000 decisions to put yourself towards that person. Mm-hmm. There was a moment where you felt, it's kind of attractive. There was another moment where there was an opportunity to spend some alone time with that person. Mm-hmm. There was an opportunity to exchange phone numbers or find out a little bit more about what's going on in their relationship. And every time we're presented with that decision, there is an opportunity to say no, because I am committed to investing the energy into my relationship, mm-hmm. or yes, this feels good, and I feel like somebody's paying attention to me. I feel an affirmation. I feel special. So instead of looking at that as like, why am I going down this pathway?
Right. Oh my gosh.
What is driving me? I look at it, or you look at it, or a person looks at it as, this is helping me. I need this. This is good for me, because I'm not, we make so many excuses. So it comes back to what we were talking about earlier, is taking responsibility, as opposed to saying the world is happening to me. It's understanding our role in the world and how our individual decisions impact on the way in which our lives roll out in front of us, that we actually are responsible for our own destiny. And if you adopt that, then even when the world throws something tragically towards you, you can make a decision about, how am I going to respond to that?
Yes,
so
absolutely.
Back to your original question, which was, do you like to work with people? Like, what kind of people? People who get to a point in their life and they're facing big decisions about their relationship, their career, parenting, their relationship with kids, their own mortality, what they're called to do, those are very positive for me.
Wow, that's amazing. That's a wide variety. I was thinking you were going to say either female entrepreneurs or, male clients, but it just seems like it's a wide variety of people. But let me go back, Kevin, to ask you, when you were talking about your marriage, did you, like you said, that there were two sides of the way you could see things. You could say that you could either wanted to, one, invest in what you were committed to, or could you like the fact that you were saying in one aspect you were getting attention from this person. Did you find yourself in those moments kind of blaming an exterior outside, or in what I'm
I know
not
what
sure.
you mean. There's an incredible ability. We all have an incredible ability to, men especially, live in denial, to rationalize, and to self-medicate based on the circumstances. So I would say that cognitively I understood the implications at some level, but how I felt as a result of pursuing that became intoxicating and irresistible.
Got it.
And
Okay.
that's usually the case. And the reason for that is that the alternative didn't create a balanced opportunity. So when somebody is looking at like, wow, I'm really unhappy, or I'm struggling, or there's friction at home, or things like that, and they're presented with a feel-good opportunity,
Yes.
it's hard for them to say, it's not as hard because they don't have a feel-good opportunity to offset that. They have this experience after
Yes.
28 or 30 years, 25, 10, 7, whatever, and it's like, I know what that feels like, and this feels different. And sometimes there's an awakening, which is like, I can't remember feeling this way before, or it's been a long time since and that's a very powerful drug. And so the greatest, one of the greatest things my partner said, my wife, after, and she's so wise and such an amazing woman, I have tons of respect for her. She said, if you couldn't choose me every day, you should have left me.
Yeah.
And I've turned that into sort of a philosophy of being proactive, which is choose your partner in the morning, choose them at night. And if I choose you first thing in the morning, say, hey, honey, great day, like, looking forward to, like, whatever affirmation, whatever physical touch, whatever connection that I can make with you. Even if I'm annoyed with you, last night you were so annoying. Like, you were so annoying, but I love you, and you're, my sweetheart. If I start off the day that way, there's nothing that's going to happen in that day that's going to come between you and I.
Right.
And if I finish the day off that way, hey, I'm so blessed to have you in my life.
Yeah.
It's so great. Let's go to bed. Nothing's going to come between us. So I don't care. You don't care how attractive or how interesting or how dynamic or whatever accolades you're getting or affirmation, or somebody thinks you're the hottest thing and somebody's the sexiest thing. It's like, 3 hours earlier, you were just expressing your love and you're connected to your partner, you're feeling intimacy. And later that night, you're going to feel it again. It's a very powerful way to ensure you stay on track. And what happens is that when the kids come and you get busy and you're in business and your partner's in business, or you're traveling, the number of times that you choose your partner decreases.
Yeah.
And now we don't have that connection. You go a week, you go a month, you go 2 months, you build some resentment, and then it's like, I haven't chosen that person for months. So this choice becomes very powerful and positive, and you forgot about the other one. So the best way to ensure you're on track is to make a conscious effort to connect and choose your partner every day. Like, just because you signed an agreement and you are married, it doesn't mean that you are living a marriage. You just are technically married.
Yes. Absolutely.
And I talk to my clients about, what is it like to live in foreplay? They say, what do you mean? They associate foreplay is like, we're going to have a little playtime and I'm going to warm my partner up. But living in foreplay is a state of mind where and they say, when does foreplay begin? It begins 30 seconds after the last time you made love. And it continues to the next time you make love. And then it continues again. So living in foreplay is like a state of being connected and intimate and excited about your partner. And obviously that's kind of like the gold standard. It's like, how do you do that all the time? There's lots going on. But if you emotionally set yourself up with like this is my partner. This is what marriage means. This is what I want from my marriage. We have great, open, powerful communication. We're honest with each other. We're vulnerable. We take responsibility for, our mistakes. Then you're already in a really, really good place. You're sort of vibrating at the same level. So,
yes.
Yeah.
No, that's amazing. This is a great segue into what I wanted to talk to you about, is the divine feminine and divine masculine. We've been talking about this even a lot offline, right? Could you elaborate on that? As we're moving into this new state of consciousness that everyone's like talking about, and sometimes these conversations between you and I can get deep.
Yeah.
So we'll probably have to segue properly.
So first of all, for some people, they get triggered by even masculine and feminine. They go like,
yes.
Oh, what is this masculine and feminine? So we talked earlier, it's just, polarity, duality, one side, the other side, two different energy sources, a way of, one is the electric, the masculine, making things happen, time and space, temporal, and the feminine is sort of the universal, the receiving, it's the magnetic. And both energy sources exist in people. We just tend to have a dominant energy source. And the dominant energy source, more often than not, is attached to somebody's biology. But that's just, to make things easy, because people want things to be easy and understandable. But men have a feminine side, and many men live in their feminine side. And if you want to know who's more inclined to live in their feminine, find somebody who was raised by a very capable, resourceful, powerful single mother who tended to look after them, tended to tell them when to write the SATs, tended to book their appointment with their orthodontist, tended to drive them to school, tended to give them some feedback about what their hair looks like and how they should wear, and provide that direction. And next thing you know, 25-year-old guy is dating his mother. And the woman is saying, and finds a strong, powerful, independent woman that he's proud of, and he settles into this because it's comfortable. He was receiving.
Yes.
And to receive is to be in your feminine.
Yeah.
And to make things happen. And it's not to be, it's to be, basically to receive is to be open. And so, yes. So some of the most masculine presenting people who, like manly people, or appear to be what we would call masculine, are actually more often than not in their feminine. They are emotional. Again, to be emotional does not mean that there's nothing, you can't add any value to it, but they're emotional, but their emotions may be one or two, they only show 2 or 3 emotions. Okay. The women, the feminine is emotional, it's expressive. The masculine is focused. So you can have emotional men who are looking for someone to take care of them. Could be a cultural thing, could be the way they were raised, and they can show up expecting to be served. They're not actually in their masculine.
Wow.
And then you try to tell somebody who's 6'4", who's a former MMA or something, hey, you're in your feminine. You're getting a lot of feminine. Like, what? I am. It's like, no. And it has nothing to do with sexual orientation or gender, but for the purposes of just this conversation.
Like an energy purposes.
It's an energy.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And so now we have what are often called an alpha feminine. And again, no pejorative, no judgment around that, but independent, resourceful, really make it happen type of women who have gone out and slayed dragons and made things happen and built businesses and done just incredible things. And they're so powerful. And they've learned to live in that masculine energy a lot. Mm-hmm. And they can't find the switch to pull them into their feminine. Mm-hmm. They can't drop into that and go like, I don't need to control. I don't need to choose the restaurant. I don't need to choose where we're going on our holiday. I don't need to choose the time. I get to receive and be taken care of. I don't have to dictate when we're going. Like, I can let go. In order to do that, and they want that. Many women yearn
Absolutely.
for that. And we talked a little bit about this, but it also connects with their sensual self. If you think of it, they think about what they look for sensually. It's not for them to be in charge in the bedroom. It's not for them to provide leadership. They want They like the idea of a strong, healthy, vibrant man taking leadership in the bedroom. It's like, hey, wow, you're seducing me. They like that. But because they've been in their masculine, or using that energy source for so long, they are looking, they want a strong man to show up that's more alpha than them, that is able to hold space for them, make them feel safe and protect them. Let's keep banging this thing. And they're looking for that person. And it's hard to find, because it's kind of like we've got people dropping into energy areas that are kind of not complementary. She's looking for the masculine, and he's been used to being around masculine, so he's dropped into his feminine, and then there's no complementary energy there.
Yes.
So
there has to be a lot of awareness.
Mm-hmm. And we talk about dating. A lot of women I coach in the dating world, they're on a mission. And as soon as you're on a mission, you're in your masculine. This year, 2021, I'm going to find a partner. Ooh, okay. Well, we know what kind of partner you're going to find.
Well, when you say they're on a mission, you're talking about on a mission to find a partner, or they're
No, they're on. It's like, I'm ready for a relationship now, so I am going to get in line. And I'm going to make this happen. I make everything else happen in my life. And then it's like, I just can't seem to attract the right kind of guy. Well, it's because they are taking charge of the process, and they're not in surrender and magnetism, putting the call out.
Yes. And what you're saying is, being like that, if they're on a mission, they're exuding masculine energy.
They're making it happen.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, that's crazy.
And there's so many, and it seems kind of like, oh, really? But we're kind of there's a primordial side to us, and the masculine goes out and hunts and drags the saber-toothed tiger back to the cave, and, then sits back for a while and just sort of are kind of lazy. And the feminine is like, wow, my man brought this home, and let's just, we're going to dig in. So sometimes it's a matter of being, it ultimately comes down to communication and an awareness of how you're showing up in your relationship.
Well, I've come across gentlemen, even whether they're just friends or, people that I know as business. And some of them have even said to me, though, too, they're like, well, sometimes it's so hard. We, like what you're saying, is they get lazy and they want to just, but they're saying that sometimes it's hard to also be the one that's even approaching women, goes, it would be nice if some of the women step up. So we are in that kind of mix, you know what I mean? It just kind of depends. And what you're saying is, what is your main energy that you're coming from?
Yeah.
There just has to even just be the right flow.
And remember, it's not a right or wrong, it's whether it works for you or not, right? There are tons of relationships where where the woman is in her masculine, a great portion. You got a big guy, he's making stuff happen. He could be a fire chief, but at home, he's
the feminine.
He's in his feminine. It's like, yeah, baby, whatever, and it works.
Yes.
And it works. It's when there's disconnection that you get to explore. Are we kind of off? Are we bumping heads? Sometimes in my case, it was like two people in their masculine, the conflict. And often a woman goes into her masculine when she doesn't feel safe.
Yeah,
because the masculine protects. Mm-hmm. So it can protect herself.
Yes.
We have both inside of us. So I can activate, if a woman can activate her masculine, says, think of a woman who may have been sexually assaulted or had a traumatic childhood, mm-hmm. and has learned to keep herself safe, that vulnerable, sweet, innocent girl that was in her, that was exploited, that somebody hurt. And think about that, what she learned to be able to protect that person. Mm-hmm. And so the energy sources serve us for a variety of reasons. And I mean that, and in her case, that was survival, and that's super healthy. And in order for her to be able to tap into her feminine, there has to be somebody who is patient, connected, protective. She feels safe, highly trustworthy, and great communicator. Otherwise, she will keep protecting herself and
Yes.
investing energy into that area, and it'll could create some challenges for both of them. But every situation's individual. But we do look at our family history and in growing up, and look to see how are we, what were we taught?
Yeah.
Particularly our parents. How did our parents operate? It's like, oh, I know where that comes from.
Well, didn't you? We talked about it before, that there are like 4 sets of like maybe rules or like guidelines that you would say that happen in a relationship. Like one of them being accountability. Can that be equally reciprocated between men and women, or is that like a rule that you're finding more that's used in the divine masculine?
Yeah, I think that for me, there's 4 areas that in a relationship, if you pay attention to, you increase the likelihood of compatibility and long-term connection, or at least, every relationship does perhaps have a best before date. Some people may just reach a point where they've changed so much that they decide to uncouple.
Yeah.
But they can do it in a way that's actually based on respect and great communication, as opposed to making choices like I made when I was confused and lost in my marriage and didn't know how to remediate it and deal with those things. So the 4 areas that I talk about are responsibility mindset, and that's the flip side to the victim mindset. So the victim mindset is like, this is happening to me, the world's against me. We're a bit of a victim mentality right now in North America, because it's like, look what they're doing to us. There's a huge amount of conspiracy theories. It's like, we have no power, they're all out to get us. It's like we're all victims of something. And we can be victims in our own life, complaining, well, this is why this happened. You're just not taking responsibility. Now, it's not to say that we have control over everything, but if we accept responsibility, we actually can change things. So I'll give you the example that I use sometimes. 2 people going into the oncologist and coming out, both stage 4 cancer. One person decides, yeah, I just retired. I can't believe this is happening to me. What are you doing, God? There's no God. Blame, blame, blame. Miserable. And, just look what happened. Like, the other person says, wow, that's shitty. Well, I knew I was going to die someday. I guess I have a pretty good idea when now. Just didn't know that. I got a lot of stuff that I want to do in the next 6 or 8 months. A lot of people to connect with, a lot of people to acknowledge the difference they made in my life, some relationships that need to be repaired, and some things I've always wanted to do, and I'm going to do them. Now, they both die, 8, 10 months later. Now, if you're going to choose one in terms of like you've got time left and you chose responsibility, you would say, I've been dealt with this, what can I do about that? And so that's an extreme example of where, even though the same thing happens, one person is a victim of it and another person chooses to say, okay, I'm taking responsibility with how I'm going to respond to this, and that'll have an impact on my life. So that's responsibility. And again, in the relationship is like, wow, she did this for me. He's always doing this. He's always this. He's always late. It's like, given that this is happening a lot, what can I do in my communication, in the way I set my day up, in the way in which I put down boundaries to let them know, how I feel, what's acceptable. And, there's lots of things I can do as opposed to just going, like, there he goes again. So the responsibility is like, I have some control of the outcome by making a set of decisions that are my decisions. So that's responsibility. Honesty, we talked about honesty just a little earlier. The ability to speak your truth, not the truth that exists out here, some sort of empirical measurement. This is really what happened. This is what didn't happen. This is my truth. And speaking that truth to your partner. I was talking to you about the ultimate act of deception or dishonesty is a strong word sometimes, but when somebody women and men are making love, and the man seems to be satisfied and the woman isn't satisfied.
Yeah.
He says, how is that for you? And she says, oh, that's great, babe. Thank you. Right. He's like, great. Did you have an orgasm? Oh, yeah. It was good. It's like, yeah, good. I'm so good. Yeah. And in her mind, it's like, I don't want to hurt his feelings. I don't want to tell him but I'm not feeling it. And then, she wasn't honest. Instead, there was an opportunity that says, can I give you some feedback? Can I be really honest? Sure. I find myself lately not really enjoying it. Mm-hmm. This is what but why? What comes up? Like, why is that? Well, and then you have a discussion, and that discussion leads to stronger connection. That honesty lays the foundation for being able to deal with anything in life.
Yeah.
So I picked that out because people think, I'm really honest, I'm straightforward, and said, do you ever do this? Oh yeah, I've been doing it since we were married. Sex isn't that great. Would you like to have good sex? Yeah. What responsibility are you going to take for that?
Yeah.
I couldn't bring that up. We don't talk about those sorts of things. It's like, oh, you don't talk about this? No. It's like he has kind of I bought a toy once, and, like he thought it was just the worst thing, and he wanted to, he felt like, why do you need that? I'm here. I'm the best lover. And it's like, whoa. Yeah. So we just don't go there. And it's like, wow. So that responsibility, not taking it, led to finding a coping strategy, which might have been a dishonest statement or act, so that to deal with it. Then the third one is vulnerability. It's the ability, and vulnerability, there's a kind of vulnerability that men fall into quite easily. Women do it as well. I call it selective vulnerability. It's like vulnerability to get a certain outcome. So I am vulnerable with you because I know if I'm vulnerable, you'll start to feel sorry for me. Maybe we'll make up. Maybe we might even make love because now we're connecting. So my vulnerability is tied to an outcome. That's when people feel manipulated. It's like, okay. As opposed to vulnerability, which is just like pure and honest. I'm going to tell you this. I don't know how you're going to react, but I trust you, and this is what I'm thinking and feeling. Got it. So those are the three ones, and the fourth one is intimacy, which in itself is a whole other podcast. But it's what does it take to create true intimacy in a relationship. But if those four things, they're like the four legs of a stool. Right. And if you focus on those collectively, like as a team and individually, I think that the relationship's destined for resiliency and harmony.
No, absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing those four areas that people can actually pull from or take that advice as the audience, right? And there's obviously so much more to gain from your coaching. And you and I have had so many talks offline, and everyone, I just want to let the audience know Kevin is an amazing coach. Very intuitive, has helped me through certain personal things myself.
And is this where we look at the camera?
You can you just wave for everyone that came on for this week's episode. But Kevin, if there is any way that everyone, anyone is interested in either your coaching or would like to get a hold of you, what would be the best way for them to do that?
I think the easiest way is just to go to my Instagram, which is at Coach Kev OC. So Coach and then Kev for 3 letters of my first name, Kev, and then OC. Coach Kev OC, and just send me a direct message and say hi. Yeah. And if someone doesn't have Instagram, many people in my age group don't, then I have a website, which is practicalmasculinity.net. So practicalmasculinity.net, and you can also send an inquiry that way. And I love talking to people about what's going on.
Well, we will definitely, to the audience, we'll definitely, if you're listening in on this and you weren't able to have a pen and paper handy or be on your Instagram, we'll have it in the description box, either in YouTube or on the audio platforms. But I just want to say thank you, Kevin, for sharing your time here with the 8 Billion podcast. And I'm pretty sure you and I will have more discussions outside of that. And I always tell my guests, because I love all my guests, if you ever would like to come back on and expand on what you're teaching or to do a follow-up, I'm more than happy to do that. So I just want to say thank you so much for being on this podcast with us. And do you have any last parting words with any of the audience, with anything that with regards to relationships or?
Well, remember, you can only love others as much as you love yourself. And if you don't feel it about yourself, you can't tap into no one's going to come and rescue you.
Yeah.
And no one's, that power is within us. And once we connect to what we talked about, the divine, that's that God that's in us, like we're our soul. We have an infinite amount of love for other people, but we have to be able to be a little easier on ourselves and accept ourselves and see our greatness. And when you get there, it's like, yeah, I'm okay. And then you got lots to give other people.
Yes, and that's
especially guys. I have to tell guys, men beat themselves up all the time. You think women are critical, they're hard on themselves. Men are walking around judging themselves all the time, which is why they fly off the handle sometimes. Why? I just said that and he's so defensive. It's because he said 15 negative things to himself before you said that one thing. He's not reacting to you. He's reacting to his history, to what he's been saying to himself.
Got it.
Yeah, a little more empathy to guys is my message right now.
Wow, that's super powerful. So for anyone in the audience, these are another gems dropped by Mr. Kevin O'Connor, life coach. So again, thank you so much for being
My pleasure.
The 8 Billion podcast, and I look forward to having you again.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. If it's moved you in any way, please review and share your thoughts, or text me your thoughts at 949-247-2800.